It is only with the heart that one can see rightly. What is essential is invisible to the eye.
Hi there. So if you clicked on this video, you wanted to hear either a review, a recap of The Little Prince, and that's what I'm here to do. What I really wanted to talk about are the lessons or morals or elements that really struck out to me on my very last reading, because this book, while it's very small, is packed with a lot of content. And while I assume everyone has read this story who clicks on it, just to give a brief recap. This is a story of a pilot who crashes in the Sahara Desert, and while he's there, he hears a little voice that asks him,
S'il vous plaît, dessine-moi un mouton.
and in this way, the pilot meets the little prince, and the little prince recounts to the pilot all the adventures that he's had. The little prince left his planet because he was upset with a rose who was quite vain and difficult. And as he traveled, he encountered different archetypes. And these are archetypes of, we would say, adults, people who have lost their way, or people who are too silly to see their own reality. And eventually, the little prince comes to Earth, and he encounters people on Earth who he also finds very strange and curious. And so, while this is a very short book, every adventure that the little prince experiences is meant to teach the children or adults a lesson or a principle that Antoine De Saint-Exupery, who is the author of this book, the lessons that he believes to be true or he learned in his life. And this time around, I really wanted to focus on the little things in this book that I thought were particularly intriguing. And the first for me is the story of the baobab trees. So the little prince tells the narrator that he has to rake seeds, and that is because there's the risk of them turning into baobab trees, which are giant and could destroy his planet. And he has to be very diligent about that because he can only really rake them out when they're small. And once they get too big, it's impossible to get rid of them. What he says is it's a question of discipline. And what this really teaches is about being very proactive, about handling problems when they're small. And these problems could be anything. So, on a metaphorical level, these baobab seeds can represent anything. But what I found really striking about this particular story is that during this period of time when Antoine was writing this book, he was living in New York in 1943 in exile. This was when France was overtaken by the Vichy regime. And what critics suspect is that the baobab trees represent fascism, that this is Antoine de Saint Exupery's warning to people about the dangers of fascism, the dangers of ideas that start to spurt like seeds and grow roots in a society and then completely take over. And at this point, completely taking over Europe. And so it dives into a much deeper issue about humans allowing bad elements to happen and the importance of being able to address those elements before it becomes too late. It's a story of personal responsibility and obligation and being able to spot danger and not waiting too long to handle it. The other story that really struck me, and this is such a simple one, but it's the story of the three petal flower. When the little prince lands on Earth, he's walking along, he's looking for humans, and he's in the desert, and he comes upon a three petal flower, and he asks the flower, "Where are the humans?" And the flower tells him,
People? There are 6 or 7 of them, I believe, in existence. I caught sight of them years ago, but you never know where to find them. The wind blows them away. They have no roots, which hampers them a good deal.
And later on, the little prince climbs a mountain, and he shouts out into space,
Where are you? Let's be friends.
and he kind of almost makes this similar flaw that the flower did, right away sort of questioning and wondering if the beings on Earth are just automatons, are just responding exactly what he had just said, because that's the only information that he received.
What a peculiar planet, he thought. It's all dry and sharp and hard, and people here have no imagination. They repeat whatever you say to them.
What this really touches upon is the idea of perspective, that this flower is not technically stupid. The flower has a very limited perspective on existence. And this has really made me think about this idea as a psychological element of what you see is all there is, which is a cognitive bias, which was presented by a psychologist Daniel Kahneman in the book Thinking Fast and Slow. And this is the psychological bias that everyone experiences, where we have a tendency to think that the information that we have is the only relevant information that is available and that there's no information missing, and that we do not question the possibility that there's more information out there. This obviously makes it much easier for our brains to operate if we just focus on the information that we have, but we very rarely question how much we don't know. And it's technically a heuristic, an easier way for us to live, because we can't always be wondering what else is out there. But what we have to be aware of is that it does, in fact, create a very limited perspective. And what we see is not all that we know. There could be so much more out there. And depending on who you ask, their perspective may vary and they may not have a complete picture of the world. So I love just the simplicity of the way that that was presented. And my favorite final lesson was another very simple story. And this is the story of the Switchman. While the little prince was on Earth, he comes upon a railroad station with a switchman, and he sees how quickly the trains zoom back and forth. And the little prince, being so foreign, is very confused, and he's asking the switchman, "Where are these people going?"
What a hurry they're in, said the little prince. What are they looking for? Not even the engineer on the locomotive knows, the switchman said. And another brightly lit express train thundered by in the opposite direction. Are they coming back already? Asked the little prince. It's not the same ones, the switchman said. It's an exchange. They weren't satisfied where they were? Asked the little prince. No one is ever satisfied where he is, the switchman said.
It really captures how I think people feel a lot of the time, and our rat race in general. We're always trying to get to somewhere without understanding why. But even when we know why, it's not really a cause of happiness. We're never fully happy, we're never fully satisfied. But at the same time, I think that's not necessarily a flaw of human nature, because again, the focus really is about the process of getting somewhere. And so it's probably, maybe, in my opinion, kind of a good thing to not be satisfied, because once you are satisfied, then you become complacent and you never want to grow. So this is not quite what the lesson tries to impart, or what Antoine tried to impart. His point was really about how you spend your time, and what is the point of rushing off somewhere without appreciating the time that you have while you're in the journey. Because the switchman notes that only the children have their faces pressed up against the glass, and they're looking out at the scenery as they're zooming by. The adults are sleeping or doing something else. So those are the little elements that I appreciated the most on my last reading.